Hey everybody! With Doctor Strange almost here, I thought it would be a nice time to talk about my top 10 favorite superhero origin films. So these are only the origin films, the films that showed how the hero became the hero. And with that being said, let us begin. At number 10, I have the original X-Men that came out in 2000. This was the movie for me that really changed the game in superhero movies. Superhero movies, during the, 80s and 90s, they weren't the best quality superhero movies. Not all of them, anyways. I mean, we did have the first two Christopher Reeve movies and the first two Tim Burton Batman films. But other than that, superhero films were really a lot of misses. X-Men really changed the game and brought the more grounded approach to superheroes, which I think everybody really got into today. And I remember really enjoying this movie so much at the time that I one time faked sick just to watch this while I was like in my early years of high school. So that's how much I love this movie. Obviously, today, when you compare it to some of the other X-Men films that have come out after, it's not the best X-Men film, but at the time, it was something really different for me, and maybe, at the time, the best superhero film. At number 9, I have The Amazing Spider-Man. That's right, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie also had its own origin, but I decided to go with The Amazing Spider-Man, which I felt was a much better version of that story. I liked the Lizard a lot more than the Green Goblin from that original Sam Raimi Spider-Man film. I think Gwen Stacy was a better love interest than Mary Jane Watson. I don't know if that was to do with the acting or the performances or the way the character was written. I like to think it was because of the way it was written. Gwen Stacy didn't feel just like your regular damsel in distress. She actually felt like a character that could hold her own, not just with, dangerous situations, but with Spider-Man as well. At number 8, I have Deadpool. Yeah, that's right. The movie that came out this year is definitely on the top of my top 10 list. And what can I say? This was something really different and really a lot of fun. And I wouldn't say it's the first rated R superhero film, but it's definitely the first one that really hit it big and showed, yes, you can do this and do it right and have a great time with it. And funny enough, it's in the X-Men universe, which shows that, Fox, they're still good with the X-Men movies. I think they should keep the rights to that. Just get back Fantastic Four, because guess what? None of those movies made my list. At number 7, I have another rated R superhero film, Kick-Ass. That's right, a lot of people don't really talk about Kick-Ass as much when it comes to superhero movies, but I will say it was a really great film, and a rated R film at that, just like Deadpool. It was a lot of fun, some great performances, especially by Nick Cage. But like, whoever thought Nick Cage could not be annoying in a movie? Because I haven't even seen Nick Cage for a while, so I hope his career is not gone. Maybe he's just picking really bad projects nowadays that people aren't even noticing. But at the time, Nick Cage was all over the place, and to see him in a role where he's actually a really cool character, it was a nice change of pace for him, and hopefully he can get back into those roles like he used to be, where, we enjoy seeing him again. At number 6, I have Guardians of the Galaxy. This was definitely a different change of pace to your usual superhero films, because it didn't really feel like a superhero film. It felt like more like another type of Star Wars or Star Trek type of film, something that takes you into space. Because if you really think about it, the Guardians don't really have any superpowers. I don't know, do they? But I really do love this movie. The chemistry between all the characters are really enjoyable. Rocket, Groot, Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax. Okay, the villain's probably not the best villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but he was okay for what he was. And it definitely gets us pumped up to see the day the Guardians cross over with the Avengers. At number 5, I have the first Iron Man movie with Robert Downey Jr. and, Terrence Howard as Rhodey instead of Don Cheadle. The original Iron Man movie, for a while I thought was overrated, but there came a time where I was starting to realize, you know what, this actually is a really well-made film. And so I have to give it that, and it might not be my favorite superhero movie of all time, but it deserves to be on a lot of people's top 10 lists, and I wouldn't be surprised if anybody watching this agrees with that. You also have to give props to Iron Man because it started something that we never thought was possible at one point in our lives, that the Marvel Cinematic Universe was going to start expanding. Something, you never seen on the big screen before. This was the first step into that. So when you look at that end credit scene where Nick Fury comes out of the shadows and tells Stark, Mr. Stark, you think you're the only hero in this universe? Your universe just got a whole lot bigger. I mean, that fans knew right away where this was going. At number 4, this might surprise people, I put Thor. The first Thor film that introduced the world to Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston as Thor and Loki. The movie that definitely heightened both of their careers and allowed us to see one of the greatest villains to rival the Joker, Loki. I remember at the time when I saw this movie, I really, really loved it, and I still do. I still go back and watch the first Thor movies. I think the Thor movies, both of them, are great. And the origin of Thor is, again, something very different. It plays with the mythology, the Norse mythology, but modernizes it into modern day, which is what was really cool about it. You don't really see mythological films like that being brought into modern day. Like, I guess Percy Jackson is the closest for the Greek gods, right? But for the Norse gods, which, I know nothing about the Norse gods. I always knew more stuff about the Greek gods, like Zeus and Hades and Hercules, etc. So now that Thor and Loki and Odin are in our, culture, our pop culture, when we talk about popular things, we know right away what, like the show Vikings, we know right away what it's referring to. At number 3, I have X-Men First Class. X-Men, the original film, was a really great step for superhero films into the year 2000 and beyond. X-Men First Class, however, I do consider a much better origin for the X-Men. And it really is more of an origin than the original X-Men movie was, because it actually does show us the formation of the first class X-Men team, which was really nice. We got Beast, we got Havoc, we got Banshee, all led by Professor X and Magneto. It shows us how that relationship crumbled and fell, and apparently, who knew, Mystique was Professor Xavier's half-sister, so that's something interesting we learned. And it started, in my opinion, another great superhero trilogy. Maybe a list that I have to do another day. At number 2, people are going to kill me for putting this one over Iron Man and some of these other ones, but I don't care. It's my list. I get to put the order that I want. Man of Steel is my second most favorite superhero origin of all time. I think this is the Superman origin that I've been waiting for. We got it with the first Christopher Reeve film, but when you go back and watch that film, I like it, but it's outdated. You gotta admit that. Then we go into Smallville, but that was a TV show and it lasted 10 seasons. It dragged on farther than it should have, but I still enjoyed it. But this is the Man of Steel, that origin that I was hoping for to see put on the big screen in an epic way, and I loved every minute of it. I loved the casting in this movie, from Henry Cavill as Superman to Michael Shannon as General Zod, and even Russell Crowe as Jor-El, and Amy Adams, I can't forget to mention her, Amy Adams as Lois Lane. Even castings that you think, really? Maybe not, but Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White is probably the best live-action version of Perry White right now. What I really love about the film also is not just the story of Superman, because everybody knows the story of Superman, but the epicness of it all, the fights look huge and awesome. That final fight between Zod and Superman is still one of my all-time favorite final battles between the hero and the villain. I think it's wonderful. There are a lot of great visuals throughout this film. If there's something you have to give Zack Snyder credit for, it's the visuals, and he delivers really nicely on that. Finally, my number one film of all time is Batman Begins, the movie that launched Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale into stardom, and showed us a different side of Liam Neeson, something we never seen him in before. This was the Batman movie that really solidified my Batman fandom. I love the Dark Knight trilogy, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and you can't get the middle and the end without the beginning, which is what Batman Begins does so great. There was a lot of a lot of people at the time weren't too sure about this movie because of the last two Batman films, which were Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. You can even throw Catwoman on top of that if you want. With Batman Begins, though, it gave us something really new, and it took what X-Men's gritty, realistic take and took it to the next level, which was something that, blew my mind at the time. I didn't think you could take these characters, keep their personalities, and put them in a realistic setting, which is what I thought was really cool about the movies. Sure, Christopher Nolan isn't the best when it comes to action, but it's not always about the action. It sometimes is about the characters and the stories, and that's what this movie is. It's a really great character study into Bruce Wayne and who he is and why he decides to put on this mask. And the villains, like I said, Liam Neeson, a role that you never really seen him play before. He's usually known as the father figure, and then to see him play that in the beginning, the father figure, mentor type role, and then go into the villain role in the later half of the movie, it's actually a really great performance and one of my favorite Liam Neeson performances. With all that being said, guys, I'm going to end this here. That was my list of my top 10 superhero origins from the movies, of course. And with that being said, I want you to comment below. Tell me what your lists are. What movies from 1 to 10 do you like the most? And remember, they have to be origins. They can't just be like The Dark Knight is not an origin. That's a sequel. So the origin is how the hero becomes the hero that we know them as. And with that being said, I'm going to end it here. Take care, like, subscribe, and until next time, take care.